college students. I find immense pleasure in introducing our speaker for today, Sri Acharya Prashant. Acharya ji is an orthodox spiritual teacher, a veganism promoter, an environmental activist, a science activist, a campaigner against superstition, and a champion of essential human freedom.
This meeting is being recorded.
Being an alumnus of IIT-Delhi, IIM-Ahmedabad, and a former civil service officer, he is an acclaimed Vedanta exegete and author of 70 books, including the National Bestseller Karma. I also welcome the Dean of Student Affairs, Professor Durbajyoti Sen, and the President, Technology Student Jamkhana, Professor Ajay Kumar Singh. To begin the session, I call upon Professor Ajay Kumar Singh to address the people watching us live through our YouTube channel. Over to you, sir.
The screen. Sir, if I can request you to have your frame so that you're entirely visible. Okay, sir, you may go ahead.
Hello, Namaskar, Acharya ji. Okay, Namaskar, nice to have you here. So, I think my previous speaker, Professor Ajay Singh, he could not unmute himself. I think he was supposed to speak something. So, probably someone organizer can just unmute Professor Singh. He can say.
Is he, if he's going to speak, I will spotlight him first. I was going with the queue which Shrutika gave.
Oh, the schedule given to me says I'm the second one. Anyway, okay, no. I can. Okay, so yeah, so thank you for giving us your valuable time, Acharya ji. And as I understand, I just that you are means you have several feathers to your cap. It's including your previous distinctions like IIT and IIM alumni, as well as you are a civil servant and decided to. So it's very nice to have you with us. And I understand also that you are right now in Rishikesh.
No, sir. Right now, I'm in the National Capital Region, Delhi.
Okay, I was just now told by someone that it is raining in Rishikesh and Acharya ji will be.
My team is in Rishikesh, actually, the Vedanta Mahotsav. It's a continuous festival from November till March, April. I mean, we propose to continue it throughout the year. So many members of the team, including some who are organizing it, they are kind of permanently stationed at Rishikesh. It's a beautiful place. We welcome you to the Mahotsavs.
Okay, I haven't been to Mahotsav, but I have traveled quite a bit in those regions. So I'm just visualizing how it would be right now, because I have been up to Gangotri, Jamunotri, that side. So yeah, so I love that place. Whenever earlier I used to be in Delhi for quite a few years. So whenever we used to get time, we used to go to Rishikesh. So anyway, without further ado, I'd just like to welcome you for our session. And our IIT, as you would know, probably because you are also an IIT, is first IIT, oldest IIT, and largest campus, maximum number of students, etc., etc. But anyway, those things are just statistics. But we would like you to, if we won't take much time of yours, so we would like yourself to please introduce. I think Professor Singh might like to tell something. He's the president of Technology Students Gymkhana. So thank you, Acharya ji.
Thank you, sir, for the kind introduction. Thank you so much.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, Professor Singh, you can go ahead. You are on spotlight.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Professor Dhruvajyoti Sen, Dean Students Affairs, IIT Kharagpur. Our distinguished guest, Acharya Prashant ji. Faculty and staff colleagues of IIT Kharagpur, guests and students. On behalf of Technology Student Gymkhana, I welcome all of you to this program. This program is organized by one of the group of Technology Student Gymkhana. I am grateful to Acharya Prashant ji for accepting the invitation to deliver a lecture as well as taking questions of IIT Kharagpur students. Just for your information, that Technology Student Gymkhana is a hub of all extracurricular activities. So broadly, we can divide activities. Physical activities are at halt in the campus. And mostly we are trying to connect students through online mode. This, the situation of pandemic is very new to all of us. And at the beginning of the 2020, it was not clear to all of us that how to handle the situation. After 2 years, at least we are comfortable to handle this situation, but it's confining a human person within a hall or within a room. What will be the side effect of this? This is also not known to us. And what we see at the moment, you'd like to hear Samvaad se Samadhan, how to deal with the situation. So I welcome Acharya ji to guide us or to guide all of us how to deal with the situation. Once again, I welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Singh. I'm really glad to be connecting to IIT Kharagpur students once again. All my previous interactions have been intense and quite fulfilling. And I look forward to meaningful and authentic evening, rather night now. So yes, you have set the ball rolling. The context has changed, the environment has changed. For sure, when I was in the IIT campus, much of the time outside of the sleeping hours was spent in the campus, engaging ourselves in the multifarious activities that the campus had to offer. be really to the hall or the hostel. But you see, that is the thing with life. Situations are supposed to change, and situations will change without notice, rather unpredictably. It's not just about the pandemic or the restrictions that came with it. The day the student steps out of the four walls of the campus, the situations have totally changed. And my young friends in the campus would be living a particular kind of life for 4 years. And the day they step out into the larger world, they find it's totally different. Similarly, when one switches jobs or one moves to another campus, several IITians enroll into programs of higher learning, technology, science, management. The situations are all different. And how about the change when one gets into married life? How about the change when one steps into the workplace for the first time? And all these are very, very important changes. And this age, when you are in your late teens, your early 20s, this is the age when life is constantly and rapidly changing around you without giving you a moment to take stock of things and to be assured, even for a small while, that things will continue as they are this moment, because they don't continue the way they are right now. Randomly, if not randomly, then unpredictably changeable. What does one do? Because one requires to have some anchor, some center, something unchanging, something unmovable. Without that, there is just too much insecurity. If everything and anything can change any moment and one's existence is linked to all these changing things, then one's existence itself is in jeopardy. No? I'm linked to this, I'm linked to that. My existence itself is a function of 1,000 things outside of me. A lot of students, for example, would lose a big part of identity if they tomorrow are not IITians. So the identity within myself, my existence itself in the psychological sense, is dependent on things outside of me. And things outside of me, as we are seeing, just are so unreliable. Now, if things outside of me are unreliable and I depend on them for my identity and my existence, then it's almost like facing annihilation when situations change. Because tomorrow, my identity itself is threatened. And that keeps happening continuously, and one has to not only survive but actually flourish in middle of all of that. One has to prosper, one has to do well, one has to be a champion. That's what life is for. You cannot spend life just complaining and suffering. Life has to be joy, life has to be a certain youthful flourish. So what does one do? Now that brings out very clearly the importance of self-knowledge. When
The recording has stopped. This meeting is being recorded.
spirituality, so that certain thing which looks at everything but cannot be looked at, that certain thing which no force in the world can ever dare to even touch, let alone corrupt. The virus may come and infect the body, the government may impose restrictions, so many things may keep happening in the outer world, yet there is something within where nothing happens at all. And if one can be attuned to that point within, if one can be affiliated to that point within, if one can be in love with that thing within, then life becomes whims. Who knows, the next virus or the next mutation might be just on its way. The virus does not conform to our desires. Life in its entirety is just capricious. Self-knowledge is extremely important. It is in moments like these that it becomes both easier and important to see how one is at just the mercy of external factors and forces. And when one realizes that, it is in the first instance not a good feeling to have, because I exist and hence I can exercise power over my conditions. It is in such situations, I am saying, it becomes easier to see that we really exercise very little power over inner conditions. The outer conditions we anyway exercise almost zero power over, as the virus has shown. And internally, where our domain should ideally exist, even there, we can come to see that we have no sovereignty. Even internally, we are not self-ruled or self-sufficient. Situations rule us. The world rules us. External objects, people, thought, this, that, past, all that rules us. So one then looks at himself and figures out, well, if that is so, is that necessary? Must one be governed by all the random things that keep on happening in the world? And if one's life is being lived that way, how good is such a life? And then one keeps, with discretion, rejecting stuff that does not deserve to be at the center of life. This is the process of dissociation. Classically, it is called discretion followed by renunciation, but renunciations and yes, and if one can do that, there is a realization of one's capacity, one's strength, and then even in the motions, one can continue to be centered, wise, strong, and compassionate. So, on this note, I would want to invite questions from my student friends. And yeah.
Sanskriti, I'll request you to switch on your video, please. Tuti, I hope you have switched on your audio recording as we had discussed on your phone. If not, please do that, and then you can proceed with your question. We can move on to the next question for the moment. We can take Sanskriti next. Deva, you can ask your question now. I hope you have turned on your audio recording. Okay, please go ahead and ask your question. Devang, you please unmute yourself.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So, Acharya ji, based on what you answered to Professor Singh earlier, you were talking about self-discovery. I had this question, and I feel that it is very relevant to all of my friends inside the campus, as well as everyone, almost everyone. We encounter these nodes, in the path of our life, where we have to take decisions. Now, a majority of us have a lot of duties associated with our life. And these duties also come with some demands associated to how we should act.
That's what a lot of us have.
A lot of us have duties associated, or say responsibilities.
Okay.
In essence, say right now I'm a student as well as I am a son. So these are multiple duties. And this comes, there comes decision nodes where the decision that we are making is actually conflicting based on the duties. Like, should I act as a student here, or should I act as a son here? And this is something that I feel is very important about us, that we need to learn how do we prioritize these duties. In essence, if we have to summarize this thing, this is called a dharma sankat, where you have multiple conflicting dharmas or duties, and you have to take one. So how exactly do we prioritize this?
Right. Can you lessen the brightness of these? It's too hard on the eyes. Both of them. May I know your name, please? Sorry, I missed.
Acharya ji, my name is Devang Upadhyay. Devang Upadhyay.
Devang. Right, Devang. Devang, duty is something you do. Responsibility is something you take seriously, you carry. Mhm. So your duties are related to who you are. Responsibility is something you bear. These are things that you do, right? You say, I'm um, bearing my responsibilities. I am right now in the line of duty. So this is something that you do, right? No, the basics, the absolute basics. Why must one do anything? Why are you right now talking to me? Why am I right now responding to you? Why do we study? Why do we eat? Why do we play? Why do we sleep? Why do we do anything? Why do we travel? Why do we shop? Why do we marry? Why do we earn? Why do we do anything? Because duties and responsibilities, they too come within the domain of doing, within the domain of actions. They are related to us. We are the actor, they are the actions. Now, why do we act at all? Why do we do anything?
Would you want me to respond to that?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Okay. So this is again based out of my personal experience. I early on in my life, I have been inspired by Gita a lot. And majority of times when I am acting or when I am doing something, that is based on the idea of Nishkam Karmyog. I am not someone who is driven by the outcome of what I do. I am someone who usually, figures out what his duties are and how do I do justice to that duty. Now, say, suppose you said something like, why do I shop? So say something like, I am a student and I have to fulfill my student duty. So I need a few things. And then I shop because I realize that I'm a student and to do justice to that.
This is becoming tautological. This is going around in circles. I want to understand, first of all, how do you determine what your duty is? What you're saying is, I act as per my duty. Devan acts as per his duty. I want to go deeper than that. I'm asking, how do you know what your duty is? Why do you do anything at all? For example, there was a day in your life when you approached the Bhagavad Gita, right?
Yes.
So before that point, you didn't know anything from the Gita, right? Nishkam Kam was a word you hadn't heard of.
Yes.
Right. So keep the Gita aside then. Go to that point. How did you come to know that you must go to the Gita? Why do you do anything? Why do you go to the Gita?
So at that point of time, maybe I was seeking some, maybe related to physicality, they may be related to emotional, but there is unsatisfaction related to wherever we are. Suppose, say, I am unhappy at the moment. So that is a state in which I am.
Okay.
And I have an inherent, urge to go towards happiness, and I act on that accord.
That urge to be satisfied or happy makes us move throughout our life, right? That's what runs the world. That's what makes everything move.
Yes.
So that urge is everything.
Mm-hmm.
That urge is absolutely everything. Without that urge, there is no existence at all, right? Without that urge, there is no laptop, there is no you, there is no me. Think of this. The three entities that I just talked of, they all came into existence because somebody was dissatisfied and seeked fulfillment or happiness, and that seeking gave birth to the objects we referred to. Similarly, everything in the world comes from that urge. Now, whose urge is that?
Maybe again, I am unable to answer this question because the information or the answer that is coming to my mind is derived from Gita, and you said keep it aside. But I personally feel that there is the urge is not related to physicality or mentality. That urge or any longingness that we have is something that is derived from Atma.
From?
Atma.
No, before you did not know the Atma, did you not have that urge?
I did have
Where
that
does
urge.
that urge come from? Keep your knowledge a little, separate from you. No, and obviously knowledge is great to have, and we respect knowledge. We'll come to that. But right now, can we come from our life? Okay.
So usually it's either due to the past experiences or the observations that we are making.
No, we said, who is having that urge? The past experiences are there. To whom?
Right here, like in this context, Devang is having that urge.
Now, who is Devang?
Okay.
Okay, let me.
If I mean, should I answer that again? But then
this face that is speaking to me, I want you to answer that. And to make things a bit quicker for you, when you sleep, Devang, and when you are deeply in sleep, does your face really change?
it does age, it does show some sort of emotions, maybe based on the dreams.
Right. And but more or less it remains the same. The weight of the body remains the same. And in fact, the face remains so much the same even in the sleeping state that a person in the waking state can pretend to be asleep. The face does not need to be radically altered to display that one is asleep.
Certainly.
So the body remains the same even when you are asleep. And then there is no question of happiness or fulfillment.
Yes.
I'm talking of good sound sleep where you are not even dreaming of fulfillment.
Okay.
So the body remains the same, yet the desires and the urges are more or less gone. As soon as you wake up, again those desires pop up and they start pushing you around and making you run around to get this, get that, achieve this or leave this, reach somewhere, be somebody. Those start happening. So whose desires are those?
They are related. These desires are somehow related to this identity that I have created around me.
When you are asleep, then you are no more Devang, right?
In a manner.
Yeah. When you are asleep, then there is no Devang at all. The moment you wake up, there is Devang and there are desires.
I feel that when, so if there is this form of energy that I have in my brain, when
No, we do not know whether there is any energy in the brain. We'll only talk of what we really know of. We'll only talk of what we really know of. We'll not depend on knowledge coming from others.
Okay. I feel that when I'm asleep, I personally feel that I am trying to manifest my desires in my dreams.
I'm talking of sound sleep. Whenever
The recording has stopped. This meeting is being recorded.
Waking state, and Devang, with all his urges and desires, comes into existence. What changes between the sleeping state and the waking state?
I am trying to figure out the answer, but I'm not able to figure out the cause.
Because no, the cause is not needed to be known. The answer is so obvious, just what you call as the quality of your consciousness.
How aware we are.
You're not conscious when you're asleep.
Okay, yes.
When you are awake, you have a certain state of consciousness. And this consciousness is always desirous. This consciousness is Devang, and this consciousness is a continuous urge to seek, to change, to be better.
Okay.
And this consciousness is Devang.
Okay. Agreed.
That appears like who we are.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
If that's who I am, and I keep on doing things continuously, then obviously those actions must be of some value to me if I am to do those things, right? Because who am I? I'm somebody unfulfilled. So obviously I need some betterment. I need fight. I'm continuously kind of suffering within because I'm unfulfilled. So I want betterment. It is with the purpose of betterment that I do what I do. So doing things continuously, and all those things that we do are for the sake of betterment of consciousness.
Agreed.
Now, those things include duties and responsibilities.
Yes.
So that tells you how one should assess his real duties. Your real duty is that which elevates, cleans, purifies your consciousness. All else is trivia. All else can be kept aside, even if it has taken the name of responsibility or whatever, kartavya, even if it appears like a dharma sankat to you. That elevation of consciousness, because you have been continuously referring to the Gita, is also what is reflected when Krishna says, keep aside all your dharmas and come only to me, mamekam sharanam vrat. Nothing else matters. You are fulfillment. That fulfillment is known by the name of Krishna. Krishna is not a person, Krishna is not a concept, Krishna is just your own destination. You are unfulfilled consciousness seeking fulfillment. That point of fulfillment is Krishna. So that of the center of your life. There has to be an inner circle. And then there can be several concentric circles of various identities. Are you getting it? Let there be a lot of activity among those concentric circles. They may keep interacting with each other. One circle may dissolve into the other. One circle might expand. One circle might fall out. All those things can keep happening there. But at the center of your life, no identity should be present. Only then, sake of those roles, they are incidental. A lot of those roles you never even asked for. They were always situational. Even the program you might have enrolled in is not necessarily the program that you always desired to be in. I can say for myself, I got a certain JE rank. And that JE rank determined the department I got into. In fact, while preparing for JE, I had thought nothing of departments. I got a certain rank in the UPSC Civil Services exam. And that rank determined the service that I got allotted to. And then and because we are not able to do what is really needed, we do all kinds of other things and hope that the needful will get done on its own. It won't happen. See, this is how it happens. You want something. You do not know what you want. All you know is that you want. All you know is that you want, because there is a restlessness within. So I want something, I want something, I want something. But because we are not conscious enough, not spiritually educated enough, therefore we do not know what exactly we want. And when you do not know what exactly you want, you fall for any of your random wants. Any of your random wants that appear big and appealing and pressing at that particular moment. It's like this. I'm hungry. I'm hungry for some particular thing. Right? Let's say there is a deficiency in body. And the body is asking for that particular thing. But I do not know, because I do not know myself. So I do not know what I really want. So what do? I start eating whatsoever is available at that moment. That's how our desires take their course. That's how we make decisions in life often. There is a gap here, there is a hollow, a void here. I do not know what would really fill that void. So I look around and I find. Is it all right now? Dr. Anupam?
Yes, Acharya.
May I proceed?
Yes, Acharya, please. There was some network problem on my side.
So because we do not know what we really want, we just look around. And whatsoever is appealing and relatively promising at that particular moment, we allow it entry in our lives. That's how we choose courses, that's how we choose jobs, that's how we choose partners, that's how we choose clothes, that's how we choose the movie to watch, that's how we choose the place to visit. None of our decisions are really informed decisions. We are groping around in the dark. There has to be follow-up. I'm sure this is not complete. I'm sure this cannot satisfy.
Yes. So it's just like getting used to that void and sticking to it so that somehow like you can make attempt to fill that.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes, you have to remember this cardinal rule. Living with the void is far, far better than filling the void with unworthy stuff. And something special starts happening when you learn to honor the void, when you are not very afraid of the void, when you don't go nervous just thinking of the void. You start discounting the competitors vying to fill that void. You know, think of this. You have a certain need in your house. And the need is pretty urgent. You need to buy something. So all kinds of vendors will come running to your place. The moment this news spreads in the market, that here we have a hungry, a needy customer facing an urgent situation, all kinds of sellers will rush to you. And they'll rush to you with all kinds of unworthy, nonsensical things, even spurious goods. And they'll come and they'll promise big. And they'll quote a high price. Why? Because they know that you are needy. They know that you do not like your situation of being needy. So they know that you will pay anything to get rid of your situation, right? When the world knows that you badly want to get rid of the void, when the world knows that you badly want to get rid of your inner situation, then it starts fooling you. It starts making you fake promises. It starts quoting you unreasonable prices. It starts even extorting stuff from you. On the other hand, if you do not have that great a need to buy stuff from the market, and these vendors are all lined up, you'll find yourself in a far better position to discreetly assess their goods. Now you can have the upper hand in the dealing. Now you can say, show me what you've got. And I want to test your promise. I want to probe deep. Now you're in a position to investigate. Now you can ask sharp questions. And when you start asking sharp questions, then all these contenders to the void, they start falling apart, because mostly they are all fake always. They gain entry into your core only because you never could deeply investigate. When you investigate, you will mostly, even invariably, find that all of them are false. When you find that all of these are false, then you find coexisting with the void even easier. You see, the void appears so intolerable because of the presence of promising options. No, my life is so lonely, and I have 5 contenders to fill up my life with, right? As long as these 5 contenders appear genuine, life will continue to appear more and more lonely. But if you learn to not be very impatient with your loneliness, with your void, then you get the freedom to inquire into the worth of these contenders. And when you inquire into their worthiness, I'm saying mostly you will discover they were never worthy at all. They were just making use of your desperation to somehow fill up the void. Never be desperate. Never be desperate. The more you learn to acknowledge this void, this fact of our existence, the more you find the various options that the world presents being ticked off. None of them are suitable. None of them are suitable. And the more you discover that none of them are suitable, the more your dislike towards the void reduces. A point comes, and it's a beautiful point to come to, when you are content with the void. Not only are you content, you are blissful in the void. And that alone is the real bliss. That does not mean that being in the void, you will no longer relate to anybody in the world. Being blissful in the void means that now you can relate to the world without being needy, without being desperate. Now you can have relationships without being frustrated, without appearing weak, without being lonely. Now you're in a position of strength from where you can have healthy relationships. Now you're in a position of strength from where you can exercise compassion. Are you getting it? Vedanta is about living a powerful life, a life of dignity, a life of sovereignty.
I think in that stage, we'll be able to choose the
Beautiful.
contenders. We'll
Yes.
be able to choose who I want to be for particular time.
We anyway choose, we always exercise some kind of choice, but mostly that choice is exercised in a state of, of helplessness, of dependence, of desperation. And whenever you exercise a choice from a state of fear and nervousness and helplessness, the choice is bound to be wrong. Whereas when you exercise your choice from a state of fulfillment, power, blissfulness, then the choices further your bliss.
Julius, you can ask a question.
Yeah, just a sec, I will. Do you want us to record the whole answer and the whole question, or just the question?
You can. I think you can ask your question. I think you can just ask your question. That should be fine.
No, I meant about the recording.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just your question, please. Just your question.
Okay. So I'm going a bit back to the question on elevating our consciousness, which is probably what the whole practice is about on the practical level, on the relative level. And in my experience, there's this certain trap where I seem to get in, which is that after you worked like a certain time and you've raised yourself from whatever you've started from, which in my case was very low, you get to a point where you start being relatively okay with stuff, you know, like life is pretty nice actually, that things you do seem relevant, nothing disturbs you that much, but still there's that kind of a certain sense of not being there, you know. And my experience, like in my life, the moments which have had the most depth and the most purity have been the ones where the suffering has been the deepest. Those have been the moments where like I have really been alive, like really in the real sense of the word. And then I just don't want to like settle in something like, I don't want to say mediocre, because I mean, maybe that's not the right word, but what's even the question here? Maybe just about how to keep the destination or the focus on the real thing like clear, even when you don't have some very obvious reasons for working on yourself. Because as long as we are here, we have to work. That's obvious, obviously. But still, I hope this was clear enough.
Yeah, it's clear enough. Thank you. Thank you for the question. You see, the real thing is freedom. The real thing is freedom. Freedom even from the compulsion to continuously remember freedom. When you are in bondage, then I advise you to constantly remember the fact of your bondage. And when you directly remember bondage, then you indirectly remember freedom, because freedom is nothing tangible. Bondages are tangible. Only bondages can be directly and tangibly remembered. Freedom cannot be remembered in that sense. Now, as your bondages start dropping, there's progressively lesser need to remember them anymore. So the appointed task is no more there. A spiritual advisor advises you to continuously remember bondage. And it's a good occupation to have. One says, fine, now I know what to continuously keep in mind. I need to keep in mind the fact of my bondage. I need to have an eye over my bondages. And that gives the mind something to be occupied with. The mind always is in search of tasks. It's a good task to have, a spiritual task. But a task is a task. Ultimately, all tasks need to be completed. You need to be free of all tasks. Even if we do not talk of absolute freedom from tasks, but relatively at least, the compulsion, which is in other words a burden, to continuously remember the task has to reduce. So what is left then? What to do? How to decide? All you are left with is freedom. Just play. No compulsions, nothing to remember. But this is dangerous advice. This advice is only for those who have first of all graduated to that state or that stage in spirituality. If I tell to a beginner, go play, he will say, I'm anyway always playing. You wanted me to be serious. So initially I would require you to be serious. And once your seriousness has carried you to some distance, I will say, keep dropping the seriousness as well. Just as you are dropping so much that is needless from your life, similarly, now keep dropping seriousness as well. A point comes when you do not need to remember, you do not need to be serious about any task. But initially, you need great seriousness. That seriousness you could call as sincerity. That seriousness you could call as love or discipline.
But I don't know if this is stupid to ask, but how to determine when you can start doing that? Because I mean, if I'd say that, okay, now I will no more take anything that seriously, then I mean, it won't go well at this point.
You continue to take everything seriously. If you are truly serious, if your seriousness has honesty, then seriousness itself will tell you when to drop seriousness as well. It's not a particular moment anyway, it's a process. As you progress, seriousness correspondingly gradually reduces. And you gain a certain lightness, a levity, a playfulness. But that will happen on its own. I only replied because you inquired about what next. That what next need not be known in advance. It will happen anyway on its own if you are sincerely running the course.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I don't have anything more at this point, maybe. Let's return to this.
Yeah.
Namaste Acharya ji. My name is Abhishek Sarda. I'm a final year student of the Department of Civil Engineering.
Give me 30 seconds.
Namaste Acharya ji. My name is Abhishek Sarda. I'm a final year student of the Department of Civil Engineering. I have a follow-up question. When you said to choose between two, when to make a decision, we need to see if one decision is uplifting our consciousness or not. So first, how to know that this decision will uplift our consciousness or not? And the secondary part is how to gain that strength. Even if I know this decision can uplift my consciousness and I should go in this direction, but all other external environmental factors, peer groups, family, how to gain that strength and take the decision.
The strength will follow from the right choice. The right choice itself delivers the strength. It's benediction, it's grace. When you make the right choice, then you actually surrender yourself to the right choice. The right choice is a big thing. And that big thing then starts taking care of you. Your task is to choose the right thing, that big right thing. And after that, you find that unpredictably and unasked for, strength and help is coming from various directions. Most importantly, the inner direction. So that will happen. So only the first part of your question is more relevant. Let's go into it. The first part is, how do I know which choice really elevates the consciousness? Let me try to answer it by discussing the opposite. How do you know that a particular choice is depressing your consciousness?
If a particular choice, if I'm not gaining anything out of a particular choice, or if I'm unhappy by making that particular choice.
Okay, let me revise the question. Give me an example of a choice that you definitely know to lower your consciousness. You very well know that if I make this choice, it has a bad impact on the mind. Give me one example.
Okay, so to cite an example, if I start smoking, I know this will deprive me of my consciousness.
And let's make that a bit extreme. Not merely smoking tobacco. Let's say you have weed. Let's say cocaine. Now here you won't dispute that it is having a bad impact on your consciousness, right?
Right.
Now tell me, how do you know that the impact is bad? Surely you have some criteria. Let's use that criteria in knowing what is called elevation of consciousness. But on that later, first of all, tell me, how do you know that drugs depress your consciousness? How do you come to know?
By looking at others, maybe if I have not tried it till now, I have to make a choice.
Be sharper, be sharper, be sharper.
So by looking and observing others who are having this.
Forget others. You are under influence. You have had a night party at the hostel or somewhere, right? And a lot of smoking and drinking has happened. A lot of substance has been burnt. How do you know that your consciousness at 4 a.m. is not elevated, rather depressed? How do you know?
It's an emotion that comes from within. I'm not feeling very happy about that state.
Give me tangible proofs. How do you know that right now your mind is not in a fit state? How do you come to know that?
I'm not able to do what I want to do. I'm not able to generate.
Yes.
I'm not able to generate. I'm not able to translate my wants into the action at the time.
Yes, you're not able to, may I say, think properly?
Yeah, I'm not able to think properly.
So that's an important characteristic. The decision that you are going to make, is it going to facilitate thought or impede thought? The decision that you are taking, is it coming from a lot of thought or rather thoughtfulness, thoughtlessness? Similarly, when you are under influence, how easy will you find to address a problem in mathematics?
Very. When under influence, I know how to solve a problem in mathematics.
It will be difficult, will it not be?
It will be.
Right. When in influence, will you know how to respond to any situation?
No. If under influence, I'll be having multiple thoughts.
Multiple thoughts. And will you have a response, a right response to anything in life? Let's say you receive a call at that time from one of your friends or even from your family, and they tell you of a particular thing that is happening at home. Will you be able to give a good response to them?
No.
No. So now you know the characteristics of a lowered state of consciousness.
Yes.
Similarly, will you have control even over your physical movements when you are under influence? Yes.
If under influence, I will not have a proper physical control on my body.
You may even fall at the wrong places, vomit at the wrong places, not identify people. Everything about your body will just be a loose cannon, a loose and irresponsible cannon, firing this side, saying this to that, abusing, falling, laughing for no reason, crying, and so many things happen. Certain people fall silent, but whatever they do, they very well know this is not a state they want to carry on with for long durations in their life, right?
Right. We certainly know that.
Yeah, nobody wants to have a long hangover. In fact, the next day you want to go to the laboratory, you want to attend your classes, and you want some lemon to help you come back to your senses. Is that not so? So friend, if you know what a lowered state of mind looks like, how do you not know what an elevated consciousness looks like?
Acharya, this is after I have gone through this process. After I know the results, I know this is lowering my consciousness. But before choosing the same, so I'm going to cite an example. So before a student starts smoking or taking weed or taking alcohol, he or she might not know the after effects, but under influence, they start doing so.
If you absolutely do not know what you're getting into, no problem. If you absolutely do not know and you have absolutely no way to gather prior information, then no problem, experiment. There is no penalty on experimentation. Experimentation is a good thing. It's a step towards knowledge. But when you do all these things, do you do these things with the curiosity to know the effect on your consciousness, or do you do these things with the deliberate attempt to kill your consciousness? Tell me, please. Think of the people who smoke or drink or whatever. Are they curious people, innocent of the results that the substance is going to have on their mind? Or they know fully well, and knowing fully well, they deliberately want to hurt their consciousness?
So the majority of part is who deliberately wants to lower their consciousness, but
Yes.
some may be doing it in ignorance.
So if you can deliberately hurt your consciousness, why can't you deliberately, with discipline and resolve, heal your consciousness?
But then comes a factor of that's what I said, the externalities. I mean, how the peer pressure is on you. If I do not have that much of strength to say no to something which I know will deteriorate my consciousness, that is the prime factor I can see in almost all of us who are not coming from their hometowns and started small.
The problem here is not that the right choice is not being backed by the right strength. The problem here is that even the right choice is not coming from the right reasons. You, let's say, are in the campus and you decide not to drink. Chances are you have refused to drink because of moral reasons. Ma or Papa had asked you to not to drink, and so you say no to drinks. It's not that you are refusing drinks because you know of the deleterious impact on the mind. That is not a prime concern with you. The prime concern is the promise you made to Ma and Papa. So even if you are making the right choice here, that right choice is not coming from the right reason. And that's why that choice does not carry much strength. And even if you make that choice, you find yourself short of stamina to live with it, to live by it, to carry on with it, to remain committed to that choice. Sooner than later, you find that you have subscribed to one of the parties. You rejected thrice, 4 times, you resisted, you said no, no, no. And one day you find yourself saying yes. Because your no never had any core to it, any right source to it. The no was a very flimsy no. The no itself was coming from an unconscious place. See, just doing the right thing is not sufficient. The right thing must happen from the right place because of the right reasons. Otherwise, the right thing will find itself powerless and defeated. And then we'll say, oh, how even the right things, they get defeated, and how do I gather the strength to do the right thing? I said right in the beginning that the right thing brings its own strength. If you're really doing the right thing with the right consideration, you will never find yourself short of strength. Are you getting?
Yes, sir. So to make a choice which is right and elevating our consciousness, I must go deeper into why I am making that choice, and to find out what is the exact reason of that.
Into why you need to choose this way or the other. You must go deeper into what you hope to get from any of these choices. It's not just about participating in that party. Choices are aplenty. All the time you are being asked to decide this way or that way. You must know why you must make that decision, and what exactly do you want to get, and what good would it bring to you. If you do not know these things and you keep making choices from a random point with this consideration, that consideration, then life amounts to not much. And it's a good counsel, rather a warning to all students. We all have a moral compass, no? If you are asked about list of things that are good, you will write down helping others, not stealing, not getting angry, not hurting others, studying well, respecting elders, so many things. You'll say, oh, these are good things that must be done. And if you are asked to list horrible things that must not be done, you will write down those as well. So we already have that moral manual to live by. And we think that that will suffice. We feel that if we know what are the good things to do in life and what are the bad things to do in life, that will take us through life. No, this will not take you through life. This will be highly insufficient. Because this kind of a roadmap lacks any heart. There is no conviction to it. There is no real depth it's coming from. It's just an external thing handed over to you. Son, in such a situation, do this, in such a situation, do that. And this, do this and do that has no strength. Therefore, you find yourself doing things that the manual has prescribed, that the manual has rejected, advised you never to do. We all do those things, right? We all do those things that we would not want to share with mama and papa, right? Yeah, you have been told that those things are not good, bad, don't do those things, beta beti. But beta and beti are doing most of those things. Why does that happen? Because an external instruction, a moral algorithm, just has no power because it has no heart. It gets defeated very easily by temptations, by fear, by circumstances. So let your do's and don'ts not come from established principles. Let them come from your clear realization. Let the decisions be instantaneous, because anyway life gives you just so many questions to answer that you cannot always refer back to some helping book or something. The questions are just too numerous and just too frequent. No help, no algorithm, no code of conduct, no externally prescribed basis for decision making is going to suffice.
So we need to experiment and realize what is there to elevate the consciousness and what is not.
Mostly you do not even need to experiment. Mostly you just need to observe very clearly. See, you need to experiment only in those things where you do not have knowledge. But look at your life. How many fresh things or situations or thoughts or ideas do you really encounter every day? Not too many. Mostly you know those things, know in the sense of being familiar with those things. Right? You make the wrong decisions even in the most familiar of environments. Why? Because even if you are familiar with them, even if you have past experience with those things, you have never bothered to closely investigate. Experimentation comes later. First of all, investigate what is already present. Experimentation will take place when something new or fresh comes to you. Have you even investigated what has been there in your life since decades? Do you really know that? Or have you been living with ready-made answers? Investigate, ask, probe, just as you do things in the laboratory. Do stuff with your own life, your own mind, your thoughts. Where is this happening? Where is this coming from? And read a lot.
Again,
that will new perspectives.
as you said, we have the knowledge base, but there is a conflict in knowledge. So what is the right source of knowledge from where we can take an informed decision? So there are multiple perspectives about fields.
When it comes to self-knowledge, there is just self-observation and Vedanta. Self-observation and words of the sages. Keep observing your life and parallelly keep seeing what the wise ones had advised you. Both these should go together.
Sanskriti, you are next. Please switch on your video. Yes, Sanskriti, please go ahead with your question. I hope you have turned on your audio recording.
Yes, I have.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so Namaste Acharya ji. I am Sanskriti. I am a second year undergraduate from the Department of Mining Engineering. So my question from you is that sometimes it happens with me that when I'm not able to complete a task or like I'm not able to do something like meet a deadline or something that was assigned to me, I really feel that ardent need to somehow punish myself. Like I'll skip a meal, or if I've planned something with my friends, like going cycling or something, I'll skip that. Or if I had planned that today after doing all this work, I'll be watching a movie at night peacefully. So I'll cancel on that. I feel that I need to give up on things that I like to do things that are more important, like maybe like studying for a test, or not even a test, like if I had some classes and I missed on them, so I need to watch the recording and complete it. So is this like, it does make me productive, but then I feel that this is not the right way. I should like inflict punishment on myself to make myself more productive. So that's what I wanted to ask you.
See, punishment must be productive in nature. Hmm? Punishment must be effective and corrective. No, that's the purpose of punishment.
Yes.
Is it not? We don't punish ourselves or others just to satisfy our revenge lust, or do we?
No, that makes us a sadist, I guess.
Makes no sense either. I mean, you are punishing yourself or others, and that's bringing about no correction in the punished entity. Makes no sense. So punishment is good. Punishment is a great thing, especially if somebody is honest enough to punish herself. But what's the quality, the dimension of that punishment? Ask yourself, I've been punishing myself so often. Has that resulted in correction, in elevation? If I need to punish myself for the same thing again and again, is the concept of punishment even working for me? Maybe this kind of punishment is just helpful to somehow placate my sense of guilt. You know, I did a bad thing and I feel guilty. To get rid of the guilt, I punish myself. You can punish yourself and get rid of the guilt, but that would not be effective in making you a better person. You'll find that you are ridden with the guilt once again very soon, and that you need to punish yourself once again very soon. Hardly helpful. Remember the characteristic of real punishment. You do not just punish the action. You do not just punish the moment. You do not just punish the event. You punish the doer herself. You punish the doing tendency. And what is the punishment you mete out? The punishment is non-existence. If you are somebody, you tell your erring tendency, if you are somebody who keeps delivering unwanted results, then you do not deserve to exist. You'll have to go. I'll have to change. And the ego, the one we are, we do not want to change. So that's the real punishment. That's the useful punishment. Change. Do not remain the same person that made the mistake in the first place. Do not empower the same tendency that wants you to keep erring. I'm no more the person in need of punishment. That's the best punishment you can inflict on yourself. Because you know the ways of the ego, it wants to do what it does and then it wants to get punished. It's a strange thing. It wants to keep doing what it does and then it says, please punish me, I did a bad thing. And the more you punish it, the fatter it becomes. The ego is a cat that gets fat with punishment. And it does what cats do, all kinds of mischief. So you punish it, you are actually feeding it. I'm talking of the normal kinds of punishments that we give. You need to give an exquisite punishment. The exquisite punishment is change or non-existence. I will not allow myself to remain the same person who is either lazy or careless or unconscious or unloving or inattentive, whatever the mistake is. I'll no longer remain the same person. And that will need you to go deep into yourself. From where is the mistake coming? Is it even a mistake? Or is it the normal pattern of my functioning? I'm calling it a mistake only because it did not deliver the right results. Otherwise, this is the way I even usually operate. That's what you will find when you go into yourself. Mistake, not even the right word to use. We call things as mistakes only to relieve ourselves of guilt. We say, oh, I didn't want to do it, it happened by mistake. It's not a mistake, it's a part of your normal algorithm. That's how you are. Why are you calling it a mistake? And if that's the way you are, irrespective of how much you punish or condemn yourself for that mistake, you'll continue making those so-called mistakes because you'll continue being yourself. You are the mistake. So the punishment is do not remain who you are. Otherwise, the mistakes will remain as they are. Use your guilt to your advantage. When you really, sincerely feel guilty, then that guilt is transformational. Then that guilt catalyzes a deep change in yourself. And I think it's a matter of dishonesty. If one keeps saying, oh, I'm guilty, I deserve punishment, this, that, and still does not change. So investigate, see where all your misplaced actions come from. Do not be too quick to condemn, because if you condemn too much, then you will not be able to approach the thing with objectivity. You did something, and that something was something you didn't want to happen. And you are immediately full of scorn toward yourself. Oh, why did I do this? I'm such a bad girl. If you are too quick to reject and condemn, then you will never know your inner truth. So instead of very quick declaration of guilt or condemnation, like a scientist, figure out why certain thing has happened. Go to its genesis, go to its original mother, see where it comes from. Sit down without feeling hurt, without feeling aggrieved, without feeling the emotional need to quickly revenge yourself on yourself. Sit down and peacefully observe. Observe the process of the so-called mistake. And when you observe that process, you find that its root might be the thing that is yielding you a lot of benefits as well. Mistakes are coming from a point, and that point is giving rise to not only mistakes but also to a lot of so-called nice things in life. And because those nice things are dear to you, so you want that root to remain. From that root come those nice things. And because that root remains, those mistakes also remain, because from the same root arise both of these things, the so-called bad things and the so-called good things. And you might discover that if you want to get rid of the bad things in life, the things you punish yourselves for, then you have to first of all get rid of the good things because they come from the same root. And that will also tell you why there is a need to frequently punish yourself. Because the root is not going anywhere. The root is in fact being nourished and watered by you. The root is the root of all good things. And then you will discover that the good things may not be so good at all. That will require an overhaul in your inner system. That overhaul, we are saying, is the real punishment. Do not go for superficial treatments.
Yeah, thank you, Acharya ji, for that.
Yeah.
I would really think about it.
Sure.
Devang, do you have a follow-up question on that? Okay.
Yeah, a simple follow-up on just not a follow-up, just another problem related to what Acharya ji was discussing earlier.
Please go on.
Acharya ji, you were earlier discussing that about us experimenting and discovering the ways in which we could raise our consciousness. I feel that I have done that on a low scale and have somehow discovered that in a manner, being a little altruistic, being a little selfless does make me feel that I am elevating my consciousness. That is what works for me. And there is this one problem associated with this kind of nature, because I feel that I say nature because I have developed this, I feel, since my early childhoods or that. So it has turned into more like a nature. And one problem that I have experienced with this kind of nature is, since we don't, so suppose if I know that I want to help this person, and I may put in effort to help this person. This is inherently linked with a kind of guilt at some point of time if I choose not to help that person, right? This kind of, in a manner, leads me to violate my own interests at times. This makes me feel guilty when I want to say no. This makes me not call out people who have mistreated me, or in such scenarios. So how do we deal with this? How do we define that boundary, that uh, up to this boundary I am ready to, extra commit extra, but then when this boundary is crossed, this is it? How do we define that?
See, altruistic behavior or helpfulness, these are not acts in themselves. However, they are often recommended or taught because mostly they go hand in hand with an elevated state of consciousness. Mostly. But not to remember what is The end and what is just a medium. Helpfulness is a medium, not an end in itself. You have to ask, is the helpfulness really delivering what anything is supposed to deliver? What anything must deliver to be of any worth? If helpfulness is delivering that, only then what you are doing can be called as help in the real sense of the word. Otherwise, it is not help. Somebody comes begging to you, help me, please, help me. Give me some cocaine, please help me. And he's desperate, he's crying, he's begging. The only help he seeks from you is the powder that he wants. Now here, you have to be very clear about the real meaning of the word help. Now, in this instance, help, as we usually know it, is not aligned with elevation of consciousness, right? As we normally use the word help, help is about giving something to the one who desperately needs it, right? A fellow comes begging desperately for something, you give that thing to that person, it is called help. That's the normal usage of the word. But here, this case highlights clearly how help can be very disastrous, which means that help, etc., all the so-called good qualities, are not ends in themselves. Any good quality is good only to the extent it elevates consciousness. Beyond that, that good quality is of no use. Beyond that, that good quality is in fact bad. Now, because we do not know that the real objective is consciousness itself, hence we keep overdoing the so-called good things. And also we keep absolutely rejecting the so-called bad things. Now, giving poison to someone is a bad thing, right? Giving poison to someone is a bad thing, is it not?
Generally, yes.
What else do you give as anti-venom to a person suffering from snake bite? But if you tell someone, I just poisoned him, you give somebody an anti-venom shot and then go and tell a random stranger on the road, there is a person inside, I poisoned him. He will declare you a criminal. He'll probably call the police. This fellow just poisoned somebody. The fact is that poison in this case is life-saving. So even poison is not something necessarily to be avoided. Help is not necessarily good, poison is not necessarily bad. These are not ends in themselves. The end has to be remembered. The end in the case of human beings, our species, is consciousness. What is this thing doing to my mind? How do I know whether a relationship is good or not? Ask, what is it doing to my mind? No other criteria is valid, only this. What is it doing to my mind? The mind's nature is realization, freedom, simplicity, truth. Is this relationship setting me free? Is it bringing me closer to the truth? Or is it pushing me into deeper bondage? So always remember the one thing that you need to remember. All else is secondary. We all know how important vaccines are. And you for sure know, as students of science, what you put into your body as vaccine. What is it?
Weakened or dead germs, essentially.
It's a diluted dose of the virus itself.
Yes.
So even getting infected is not necessarily bad. That's what all the research labs and WHO and all the doctors are doing. They're putting the virus in your body.
So
I just put the virus in that fellow's body. He will say, you see, irresponsible and hateful. You have to remember the end.
Okay.
If the end is remembered, practically anything can be a means to that end. If the end is remembered, no means is important. Only that particular means is important that leads to the end at any particular moment. And you don't need to stick to any particular means, because life changes, so means have to change. The end alone is changeless. The end alone is endless. Everything else must come to an end, except the end itself.
I was trying to investigate like what you were saying in my own life, just to figure out where this dynamic is visible maximum. And I figured out that it is visible maximum in scenarios where I am not clear whether the person who is asking help is the help is actually is actually gonna benefit them or not. Or I should be more clear and I should be more truthful, and I say that where I feel that I become weak enough to not be able to see them in a state of pain, of immediate pain, but benefit in the long run. Because I may know that this right now is painful for them, but may be beneficial for them in the long run. But then I become weak as soon as the people grow closer to me, to choose that weakness for them.
Then you have to intelligently operate. Obviously, as human beings, you want to help the other get rid of his immediate pain. Here you need to be a bit tactful. Here you need to operate in a way where both the things happen. To some extent, the current pain reduces, and mostly the fellow is able to not to fall in pain again. You see, that's the characteristic of real help. If you are helping someone really, then you would be reducing his need to seek help again and again. So test your action of help on this criteria. I've helped him in this instance. Now, is this enabling him to operate independently of any help? Or will he come repeatedly to me to again seek help? Reduce his need to be helped. That's the real help.
Just one final doubt where this has been pointed to, and that is, say, when we talk about scenarios like romantic relationships that are based on the inherent, I don't know, how do I put this? There is this kind of need, or there is this identity association with the other person. And so we have this scenario that if we actually enable them, that they no longer feel the need of that relationship, if we truly enable them that they no longer feel that that relationship may add value to them in the future, then this actually may be the point where that the point where the relationship starts getting destroyed. And so how do we deal with that?
Right? If that fellow no longer needs my help, why will the relationship exist at all?
not help if that fellow no longer feels that this is something he can come to in the need of crisis.
Must come to. So
Must come
if
to.
that fellow is no longer needy, if that fellow is no longer needy, will the relationship exist at all? Is that not a very disturbing, or rather scathing comment on the nature of most of our relationships? They are need based. You fulfill my need, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. Not good to hear, and much worse to live. And your fear is that if this mutual dependence is no more there, then the relationship would cease to exist. Yes, the relationship would cease
It's an
to
observation I
in the
have seen.
form it currently exists. And the current form is hardly any good. Don't you agree?
I agree.
The relationship right now is mutually parasitic. Two parasites feeding upon each other. I can't live without you. You can't live without me. I suck your blood. You suck my blood. And the deeper is your dependency, the more you say you love me. This is just not good. This is just not good. And also, relax. When you are mentally evolved, that does not mean that you are left with zero relationships. You are left with healthy relationships. The problem is mostly we only know sick relationships. So if we are told that you can't have sick relationships, that translates into we can have no relationships. If I only have rotten fruits on my table and somebody says, you can't have rotten fruits, to me that translates into you can't have any fruits because everything is rotten. Don't be afraid. Nice, juicy, fresh fruits do exist. And all of us are eligible for them. There's no need to discount your eligibility. There's no need to think that life is condemned to be lived in stinking relationships. Things can get better. Even with the same person, you can have a much better relationship. The persons need not necessarily change. Even with the 2 or 3 or 5, whatever persons remaining the same, the relationship can be completely new and healthy. But that will require obviously a lot of work, discipline, a lot of love actually, a lot of wisdom. You cannot just operate on the back of your normal personal social knowledge and hope to have a truly healthy relationship. That won't happen. Knowledge of the kind that can transform a relationship can come only from spiritual sources, not social sources. TV and media and stand-up comics and your neighbor and apocryphal wisdom will not enable you to have true relationships. All you will have is replicas of the kind of relationships you see all around you. In family, in the neighborhood, in the movies, in the past, in social media. Don't you see relationships there? So wisdom coming from those very same sources will not allow you to have better relationships. You require wisdom from elevated sources if you want elevated relationships.
So if I can just extend this and ask a final question. So what, according to you, should be kind of the metric based on which we should evaluate whether this person, this relationship that we have is actually healthy for us or not?
To begin with, freedom. Have you been engaged or encaged? Mostly when you are engaged, you are actually encaged. Freedom. The true self is another name for freedom, and ego is another name for bondages. Any relationship that brings bondages to your life is just not the real thing. Wisdom, can you see things in a sharper light? Does the person, I mean, there's this recent thing I said to someone. Does the person bring you roses or books? Is that not a credible enough indicator? That one of the diseases of consciousness is body identification. The more body identified your consciousness is, the more lowly is the life you are living. Is the person making you more of a body? In the presence of that person, do you feel more bodily, more body identified? Does the person look at you primarily as a body? Run away. It's a very, very bad relationship. What is the content of the usual discussion between the two of you? Is it about wisdom? Or is it just mediocre, animalistic, body-centric gossip? What do the two of you do when you get together? Do you talk literature? Do you talk wisdom? Do you talk science? Do you talk climate change? Do you talk philosophy? Or do you talk breasts and hips? You have to figure out. There are very powerful indicators. You cannot miss them unless you are intent on deliberately missing them.
I guess this.
Ritika, you can go ahead with your follow-up question.
Namaskar, Acharya ji. I'm Shrutika and I'm a second year undergraduate from the Department of Mechanical Engineering. So as Devang was talking about saying no to people and giving focus on your own things. So I have observed this mostly happens in work related relationships. For example, like we have our colleagues and like they need help from us, but at times this happens that we are busy with personal stuff and like we won't be able to help them, and as Devang said, after some time you have that regret that you were not available for that person. So I had the same question, like due to that regret you keep on giving up, like giving to that person, giving in, and every time what we do is that we sacrifice ourselves. So to what extent sacrificing is right?
No, sacrificing is something wonderful. But what is the definition of sacrifice? What is sacrifice? Giving up on something of little value for the sake of something of higher value. That's sacrifice. And therefore, sacrifice is an affirmative thing. It's a constructive, productive thing. Sacrifice is not just about negating or renouncing. Sacrifice is actually about creating. Sacrifice is about creating something. Sacrifice is not a negative word. Sacrifice is the most positive word you can think of. Positive in the sense of it being very pro-life. It being creative, constructive. It gives rise to something. In fact, you cannot create anything while if you do not sacrifice something relatively worthless. Or can you? I'm pretty sure at this moment, all of you had other competing things to do as well. At least I had a lot of other things that I could have done at this very moment. I sacrificed on those things to be here with you. And I'm glad I did. Because this, in my assessment, is a higher thing to participate in. No? So there always are these trade-offs. What is sacrifice? Sacrifice is a great trade-off. And that's why even in the most ancient of scriptures, you find the word sacrifice. And you find it around the world. And obviously sacrifice is not about slaughtering an animal or just offering milk or something or money or clothes to the deity. Sacrifice is a much deeper psychological concept. Sacrifice is a recipe for mental health. You're getting it? Now, if this is what sacrifice is, then it should be easy for you to know whether you are sacrificing rightly. See whether your sacrifice is creating something bigger than the thing sacrificed. I gave up on something small. Check whether something bigger has been created. Otherwise, it's a bad trade-off, no? To give up on 10 rupees for the sake of 2. Poor arithmetic. Similarly, poor sacrifice. Getting it? The rider here is that in real life, things are not so easy to quantify. You will not know whether something is worth rupees 2 or 10 very easily. Especially if stuff is intangible. For example, you have to sacrifice your pizza for your sister. Now the pizza, you know, costs rupees 400. But what's the quantum of love or affection between you and your sister that's aided by the sacrifice that you cannot know? You also do not know whether giving up on the pizza was actually good for your sister. She might already be fat. She might already be addicted to pizza. That's where you require wisdom. To know the value of something in life. Wisdom is essentially about having a sound value system. What is worth having? What is worth valuing? What is important? What is not? And what is important? To begin with, freedom is important, truth is important, clarity is important, compassion is important. These are important things and they have very high value. And if they have very high value, then something small can be sacrificed for them. Are you getting it? But if your sacrifice is not in the direction of love, truth, compassion, clarity, then your sacrifice is going waste. Then it is just an exercise in some kind of morality. This sacrifice will not help you or the sacrifice thing or the one receiving the sacrifice.
Yes, sir, but there are points like when you have that time, like there's this thing that my sister asked pizza from me. At that moment, I'm like, I will give it to her, right? And afterwards, I realized that that wasn't good for her. Even at times it happens that I won't give her the pizza. And afterwards, I feel that I didn't give her pizza, she's feeling bad. So this thing of regret, that's the thing of regret you feel every time you do something. Like while doing it, I don't realize that. And after some time, that regret comes in.
That regret is there only because you do not know the value of the thing sacrificed versus the thing obtained. Okay, let me clarify with an example. Let's say you come to know that somebody sacrificed her entire bank account for the sake of a packet of peanuts. What would you say? You'll say it's a bad trade-off, right? Bad trade-off, right? Just for peanuts, she gave up on her entire bank balance. And there is regret now. You use the word regret, right? Now there is regret. Let's say you are that person and you'll be very regretful. Oh, I have given up on my entire account for the sake of peanuts. But if you go closer and examine and find that your bank account had only 2 rupees, are you still regretful? That's the thing. You do not know the value of the thing, therefore you are regretting. Sacrifice must always involve something of smaller value, compromised for something of larger value. Otherwise, there will be indecision and regret. You will just not know what has been lost and what has been gained. So you will have mood swings. Sometimes you will feel, oh, something nice has happened. It's good I sacrifice. Sometimes you will change your mind and say, no, 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 it was a bad decision. Because you do not concretely know the value of stuff. Value you can know only when you go close to something. You have to know that thing, you have to know yourself, and that determines the value of the thing. Right? What is the value of something? The value of something is only as much as it aids your own liberation. That's the value of the thing. Something that takes you to freedom should never be sacrificed. Right? Something that brings you the truth should never be sacrificed, because freedom and truth are invaluable. Whereas something that just feeds your body can be sacrificed, not a big deal. Something that just entertains you can be sacrificed, not a big deal. Something that just feeds your ego, inflates you, can be given up, not a big deal. The art of valuation, that's the real thing. Learn what is valuable in life. Never sacrifice that. And for the sake of what is valuable, everything else can be sacrificed. Then there will be no regrets. In clarity, there are no regrets.
Yes, sir. So if we take the same thing in terms of time, like timing, like there's this 1 hour I have to give it to myself or to my friend. So in that case as well, so like this is the timing. So how do I evaluate that whether this time is for, should I give it to myself, to me, or to my friend?
How do you know you shouldn't have been watching Netflix last 2 hours?
Because I know that this is a productive session
What is
and
the definition of productivity?
you gain something from it.
What something?
Anything, like if I would have been watching Netflix for 2 hours, I would have refreshed myself.
We are not having this conversation for anything. There is something very concrete this session is for. What is that thing?
In terms of,
You tell me. What is the session for?
okay, so this session is for conversation between us and to
Conversation is the method. What is the aim of this session?
clear our minds and
So that's what is important. That's what has value, clarity. Clear up your mind, as you said. Clarity, clarity. So that will enable you to know where to spend that 1 hour. Spend that 1 hour where you get clarity. Avoid places where you get even more fogged up, where even the clarity that you get gets surrounded by haze. Avoid people who stand as obstacles to clarity, who will not allow you to think freely, who put fear in your mind or tempt you with greed, or who create situations in which you just cannot be attentive and look at life. Those are the things, places, and times to be avoided.
yes sir, I guess I don't have any other follow-ups now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Priti, I hope you have your audio recording on.
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you. Namaste, Acharya ji.
Namaste.
So, Acharya ji, my question is with regard to daydreaming. So, this has been a habit since long. Like when I was very little, also I used to daydream a lot. And earlier I used to feel that it's because the time and the kind of circumstances that I was put under that resulted into daydreaming. Now that I don't have that much time, my schedule is very like cut to cut. And I still have this compulsive habit of going into daydreams again and again. And I feel that the time that I'm working, like it's 4 to 9, I feel that it's way easier for me to say, not now, come later, not now, come later. But apart from that time, I feel that it it essentially keeps on, it doesn't just go away like that as well. And another question is that I have observed with these daydreams is because it comes when I'm like in a stressful situation, like 10 minutes before exam time, or when I'm not okay with the facts of my life, my existence in itself. I don't know, there's nothing sad, particularly sad about my life that I can point out. If, like, let's say some person asks me that what are you depressed about, I won't have anything to say. My life is going perfectly well. But I still have, why the daydreams? Why do I feel the need to escape? That is the question that keeps coming back to me. And I mean, like, connecting it with something else, 2 years ago, I came to my very first camp and I had my very first interaction with you. there also I asked somewhat the same question of why do I need more of something? Why do I still need more of attention? And still, even I mean, even now I feel that I'm not okay with what I have. I need more. So is it something that I have to like live with my entire life? Will I not ever be satisfied with where I am, with the fact of whatever there is, or is there something missing in my understanding? That's the question.
Quite interesting. If the dream is calling so much to you, why not see whether the dream, or at least some part of it, is worth pursuing? Why let it remain just a dream?
In a way, I kind of am. It's somewhere the enhancement of what I currently, or the situation that I'm currently in. Like if let's say I'm writing a paper on animal protection laws, my daydreams will be like, let this paper get published in some very big firm, something like that, on those lines. Like even before I start a thing, I start thinking of its culmination. I start dreaming about its culmination even before I get into the process of it.
So it's good if you start thinking of the culmination of something, then that thought should itself tell you that for this paper to be published, it requires to have the requisite quality. And if it is to have the right quality, then I better concentrate on the paper than the dream. So the dream, if looked at attentively, can bring its own end. Ultimately, what anybody dreams of is welfare and betterment. Nobody dreams of stuff that would put you down or cause hurt and suffering. We all want good things to happen to us. That's what we dream of. All that you need to remember is that for good things to happen, you need to do some good work right now. There is no other time, there is no other place where something good can happen. Your willpower is limited just to this moment. You do have a choice, but only in this moment. This is where you can change things for yourself. And dreams take you away from the present. Even to materialize those dreams, you need to return from those dreams. So honor your dreams, respond to what they are saying, and tell them, yes, yes, you are great. I love you. And to materialize you, let me do something. In doing something, there is hardly any dreaming. You said that, right? That when you are in your office hours, then daydreaming is not that big a problem. It becomes a problem after office or when you are free. Is that what you said? The problem remains, the solution remains.
I have a particular habit, everyone should have it because it's not particularly anything wrong. For example, making the bed in the morning. And I think it shouldn't influence everyone because now that I'm not at my home, I'm in a hostel, I'm living with my roommates. So I cannot control their habits, right? It's about my control upon myself.
You really know what is best for yourself?
I think so.
If you really know that, why don't you know what to do to get rid of your hurt? Because that's the best thing for yourself. And if you do not know what is best for yourself, how are you so confident in determining what is best for others? So God the kind of strength that can never be hurt. We all need something that is hurt proof. Nobody in the world likes to be cheated. So we want something that you can absolutely rely on. Nobody in the world. I know it won't be very clear. I don't expect too much from a 10-minute conversation, but I just hope it's a good beginning for you.
Yeah, so that did give me a lot to think about, to be honest. And I feel that was a really good insight. And I'll definitely think about it. And thanks for this. I think I needed this answer. Thanks a lot.
Nandini, please ensure that you are recording.
Anything in comparison of infinite is zero. Divide anything by infinity, what do you get? Zero. So is 3 by infinity really bigger than 1 by infinity? How do you feel superior to the other person then? See, feeling superior is a mark of lack of clarity. Also, knowing that 3 is greater than 1 as a fact is one thing. You are entitled to know that fact. But thinking that 3 being greater than 1 makes you closer to the target is just another thing altogether, and it's false. What do you have love for? Comparisons or the target? If you are always looking at the other, or at least sometimes looking at the other to feel good, then why do you need the target? Just be better than the others and feel good. The real targets are for those who feel good only with respect to the target. Nothing else helps them feel good. Comparison with a laggard is a cheap way of self-gratification, is it not? I am better at least than the one behind me. You are entitled to feel good. That's called joy. That's called liberation. But that should only be in context of the real thing. The fellow behind you is not the real thing. If anything, the fellow behind you deserves your compassion. Think of yourself. You are far from the target and you are not good. You feel uneasy and restless. Think of the one who is worse off. How uneasy must he be feeling? And what's the point in claiming superiority over this poor fellow? He is so poor. If you have to compare yourself to the target, if not to the target, at least with those who are closer to the target. Compare yourself to a Krishna, to a Buddha, to a Mahavir, to an Ashtavakra. Compare yourself to them, but they don't even come to our mind. Why don't they come to our mind? Because we have no love for them. We have love for the ego. So all the material that can feed the ego comes to our mind. Fall in love and fall in love with the right thing. If you compare yourself with all the pygmies, then in some sense you are in love with the pygmies because they are the ones giving you happiness. Do not let anything give you a cheap kind of happiness. Fast. This is called fasting. This is the real meaning of fasting. What does fasting mean? Giving up on easy and cheap pleasures, right? Like biting into a samosa. It's a cheap pleasure. I want to fast. So fast. Tell yourself there is the real thing, and only the real thing can give me real happiness. If I have to have a relationship with those who are somehow behind me, the relationship will be of compassion. I'll help them if I can without a feeling of superiority. Because superior I anyway am not. What superiority am I talking of? 3 by infinity versus 1 by infinity. Hardly any superiority. And the ones who are really superior, their superiority consists of going beyond this duality of superiority and inferiority. That's what makes them really superior. They do not think of superiority.
What exactly happens is, maybe you can say that my joy of being a little clear towards something automatically gets converted into that feeling of superiority somewhat, and then it's just a cycle. Then I work towards not being superior, and then this is again happening because of the surrounding. Like people say that we are average of 5 people we are surrounded with. So this is just happening.
Think of this. If you get happiness by comparing yourself with the average of these 5 people or whatever the concept says, why will you seek better people at all? Happiness lies in being with the inferior ones. So don't allow yourself to relish this happiness.
Understood, Samvaad.
Yeah.
Avnish, you are next. Please switch on your video. In the interest of time, we'll move on to the next question.
Namaskar, Acharya ji. I am Avnish Kumar, a second year undergraduate student of the Department of Mechanical Engineering. So my question is, sometimes when I met some respectful person, I am hesitated to express or to put forward my thoughts to them, might be out of my overconsciousness, and at sometimes I left speechlessness and can't express efficiently. So what could be this? How to come up with the situation? Please guide us.
Let this hesitation or whatever be there. Just pay attention to the person if he is worth listening to. Speaking or not speaking, hesitation or confidence, these are not very important things. Right? What matters is your attention. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
So how much hesitation did you have to overcome in saying yes, sir?
Not much. Just I said.
Yes. Because you are in this conversation, because you are listening, because you are immersed in listening itself. And hence there is no space for hesitation or whatever. Right now, your entire energy is just focused on listening. So therefore, there is a smooth flow of words when it is needed. Otherwise, silence is good enough. The thing is, in our society, in this distorted culture that we have nowadays, there of the quality of your content. 5%, and that too is belongs to your accent, your vocabulary, your fluency, and such things. And quality in content comes from attentiveness. It comes.
The thing, the dilemma of state in which my mind is, whether to say it means what I am thinking that thing is good, but whether it is actually good or.
Namaskar.
Remember the real goal. Remember the real goal. Whatsoever you have achieved is too little in front of the real goal. So there is no need to be too happy. The celebrations are misplaced. Equally, irrespective of whether the little thing is a globe or a kid's little plastic ball, the fact is that you are born to achieve the real goal. That is the purpose of your birth. Otherwise, you won't have born. So there is no need for any gloom or despondency. Misplaced celebration is just as bad as depression. No? Misplaced celebration. Also, the kind of self-correcting mechanism you are talking of does not exist in all people and at all times. You are saying if someone is feeling sad or down, then let that person plunge into the depths of sadness, and from there she will bounce back on her own. That may happen. That may also not happen. Further, that may take a lot of time to happen. Further, in your misplaced feeling of sadness, you might take certain decisions that are irreversible. At least you might take decisions that lead to a loss of a lot of time, and that is irreversible. Equally, when you are unnecessarily jubilant, you may again make decisions that may cost you dearly, or at least you will waste time. So that's why these extremities are to be avoided, both being false. Anything false is avoidable, no?
But like, just a second. I feel that being at extremities will allow a person to maybe explore that side and gain more clarity regarding the situation.
If that person had such a knack for exploration, why would he have landed at the extremity first of all? What makes you land at that extreme? Your unconscious self, right? Because you don't know yourself, therefore you find yourself in depths of despair or clouds of happiness. That's because you are unconscious towards yourself. That's because you have not explored yourself fully or deeply. Now you are saying, being in those depths, I will suddenly become conscious and start exploring. That may happen by virtue of grace. More likely, that may not happen.
So it is more of like just a safe play to be in between and oscillate?
No, not in between. It's, you have to seek safety at the only place where it exists. It exists only in your consciousness. The two extremes are extremes of unconscious darkness. They are not to be avoided because they are extremes. They are to be avoided because they exist only in your ignorance. Only in your ignorance can you become very happy or very sad. Ignorance is to be avoided. It's ignorance that is avoidable. Extremes, well, if you can be at your joyful best, in your most conscious state, wonderful, why not? Why not? That's the entire purpose of consciousness, to bring you to one particular extreme. That extremity is very auspicious. So it is not as if extremes are to be avoided for the sake of being extreme. Extremes are to be avoided because these extremes that our friend was referring to are extremes of ignorance. Ignorance is avoidable.
So I have a doubt, like being conscious about our happiness and being unconscious about the same. What's the difference? As in, is it like if I know the exact reason, ki, yeah, I'm happy for this, and it is right for me that yeah, I'm happy to. Is it like I'm conscious and I'm just happy, bas aise hi mujhe kuch nahi pata? So is it the unconscious state?
Mostly when we are just happy, we do not even know where the happiness is coming from. You go to a monkey, for example, you show it a banana, right? The monkey immediately moves towards the banana, stretches its hand, leans towards it, tries to jump. Does the monkey know why it is doing such a thing?
To take the banana.
Exactly. No, but does it know what the banana means to it or whatever? Does it even have time or the intention to reflect? This is called compulsive behavior. And the monkey for sure induced a certain, the banana for sure induced a certain happiness in the monkey. That is the quality of most of our happiness. We see a banana, we get happy. We do not know what is the quality of this happiness, where is it coming from, and what will it do to us? Is it taking us to the place where we need to be? Or is it just an animalistic thing? The old ancient pleasure-seeking tendency that does us no good. So when these thoughts arise, when emotions arise, then a human being, as opposed to an animal, has to know what is really going on. The animal just gives in. The animal neither reflects nor pauses. It does not really have any need to reflect or pause because it has no urge towards liberation in the first place. But you being a human being, if you behave like animals, then you will suffer. The monkey does not suffer for being a monkey, but a human being will suffer deeply for being a monkey. So we have to be knowledgeable. Self-knowledge is about knowing your, how is one aspect of your behavior linked to the other thing. What is your relationship with the world? What is the content of your mind? Where do your insecurities come from? Where do your plans come from? Happiness, sadness, and so many other things. What is it going on within? There is something exclusive to human beings. We must reflect.
So I have this question which I was supposed to ask afterwards, but I think it will make more sense now. Is when we wake up, or we maybe say, I'm doing meditation and I'm purifying myself or the image or my mood, and I come afresh. But after some time, I feel impure because of the behavior of people around me. As in, my question is how to focus on ourselves and not get affected by what others say or do.
If meditation brings that purity in the mind, why don't you continue your meditation all through the day?
Because we do have to work.
Because you love something more than purity. So you what you love, you do not love purity, you do not get it, you love something else, you get it.
No, I mean, I do love what I do in work as well. Like, my whole point was ki when we wake up, we are like totally fresh and I feel like there's a clean image, but throughout the day that image gets dirty. From image, I mean, you can say piece of cloth that gets dirty, our soul.
So why don't you then spend your day, your entire day, as if you are still fresh? You know what fresh means? Not tainted, not corrupted.
Yeah.
Fresh means something that has just come up from the source. So why don't you live your entire life that way, in a certain freshness? No idea. One requires love for that. The meditation that most people practice is a very limited thing. Therefore, it can give you that purity you talked of only for a limited period. Its effect wanes off very rapidly. But it gives you some relief, so you come back to it every morning. The thing is to remain meditative your entire day. And if you have to be meditative your entire day, then that kind of meditation will not help. That kind of meditation can at best initiate you, but it cannot carry you the distance. Right?
It's very unclear in my mind.
I didn't say it can become clear so quickly. I have no illusions of that nature. It took me several decades to utter these simple sentences. You will take at least a few years of listening. See, please understand this. You're asking this question because you're missing something, right? What do you miss? You miss that purity, that freshness. These are the words you used. Huh? When we miss something, we say we love it, right? When you love someone and that someone is not present, you say, oh, I missed you. So missing something is meaningful only in the context of love. Are you with me till here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let that love deepen. Let that love deepen. That's why I said continue your meditation throughout. And then you cannot sit and meditate. Therefore, you have to talk and meditate, walk and meditate, eat and meditate, run and meditate, quarrel and meditate. That's meditation 24/7. And that can happen only if you have love for that purity. That can happen only when you are not thinking of methods as meditation. Mostly what we call as meditation is just a few methods. Methods are not meditation. Meditation is something internal, and meditation is nothing that you can really practice. Meditation is something that you can only remember. Meditation is to remember that one thing continuously, that one thing that has no name, no form, no shape. It exists both as a hard core within us and also as a hollow, a void within us. That has to be continuously remembered. Only that can keep you fresh. Otherwise, the world will be very quick to taint you. You wake up and your mind will be full of thoughts. Thoughts taint us. Thoughts of miscellaneous things, thought of this, thought of that. Meditation is to remember that there is something far more important, far more lovable than this and that. So these thoughts, even if they are there, they do not carry great importance. That is meditation.
So like personally for me, meditation is like being I call it ground state for myself when I'm not feeling myself, as in I'm not even happy, I'm not even sad, I'm just there. I mean, maybe I'm not just there when I'm not thinking about a lot of things, or maybe I'm not thinking about anything, but you can say, okay, like I've switched on my net, and the moment I turn on my net, there'll be lots of messages on my phone. So I avoid that first thing in the morning to keep myself fresh. But the moment I do that, I just feel like दुनिया बस पता नहीं क्या डाल रही है मेरे ऊपर बोझ.
So either throw away your phone, permanently disconnect your net.
I do feel like doing that.
You feel like doing that, but you will never do that. So if you will never do that, then you better figure out a way to coexist in peace with some of that. I said some of that because in peace, a lot of that will become irrelevant and you will not need it. Only that part of the messages or the worldly contacts is going to remain, that is really useful and auspicious. Not switching on the net is no solution at all, because we are born into the net. Life itself is the net. You really have no option to never switch it on. Sooner than later, it will be switched on. Even if you keep it switched off in one way, it is already switched on in several other ways. So you have to remain meditative in the middle of the net. And that can happen only when the mind is in love. The mind is in a very subtle love. A remembrance of something that's far more valuable than any of these things outside of us. You look at anything and it's not tempting enough, not promising enough. Obviously, things have their utility, their value, their practical functionalities. So we have things for that purpose, but things are things. Things are not love.
Okay, it means loving simplicity in a way that other things can't tempt you.
You're coming closer, yes.
Now I'm not even thinking about anything.
That's how you get glimpses. And these glimpses are the opportunity to fall in love.
Thank you so much, Acharya ji.
Thank you.
Devang, please ensure that you have audio recording on, and then you can go ahead with your question.
Acharya ji, since you were talking, just a second, yeah. Since you were talking about extremities earlier, there was this one aspect of humanity, say, which has been highlighted in the recent and also has been highlighted in the past, and that is about I have observed a trend that in the recent past, the number of people who are resorting to extremities for any reason, be that be political, be that be religious, be that be just social extremities, have just increased in number. And this specifically, if we put this in a worldview context, this is a problem that is gonna emerge and haunt specifically our culture in the coming future. And I feel that it is. I feel that this is, I wouldn't say that this is a problem, this is a phenomena that we just see a trend where extremities is extremity to begin with. And this has been more of a reactive kind of mechanism. Say I'm talking about the people who associate themselves with Sanatan Dharma, or people who associate themselves with specific ideologies that are non-extreme. And there have been sects and there have been people who have resorted to extremities more of as a reaction because they see no other way out, or whatever may be the reason that they cite. But then what like do we as a society want to see ourselves develop in that fashion, or how exactly should we have a vision of the future? Like, where exactly are we heading, and should we be heading that way?
See, every extreme denotes a thirst. Be it the extreme food consumption of somebody recuperating from a fresh breakup, the extreme possessiveness of protective husband, the extreme competitiveness of a job seeker, the extreme anger of a jilted lover, all these extremes denote a thirst. Do you see this? Extreme anger, extreme anything. If today you are seeing so many extremes in all ways in the society, they are indicative of a central common problem. And there is not just religious extremism. Even global temperatures are rushing towards an extreme, are they not? Even sea levels are rushing towards an extreme, are they not? And I'm inviting you to see that all these are interrelated.
The global forest cover currently stands at an extreme. What kind of an extreme?
Minimum extreme.
Lower than it ever was in history, right? Global flesh consumption, both in absolute and per capita terms, today stands at an extreme, no?
Higher extreme.
Humanity was never killing so many animals per minute ever in history. The average person was never consuming so much flesh ever in history. The quantum of fissile material, weaponized fissile material with the world today stands at an extreme, does it not?
Yep.
Computer processing speed today stands at an extreme. Is it not? Would you want to see how all these extremes are linked? We said all extremes come from a certain thirst, rather a central thirst. Religious extremism is gross. It's very visible. It's right there on the roads. It carries banners and flags. So it's obvious because there are slogans and often there are riots as well. So it's obvious. But think of this age of extremes as one composite unit. All of this is arising from the kind of despondency in the human mind that is unequaled in history. Have you ever had such a large proportion of humanity in a state of neurosis? Such a huge mass of people suffering from all kinds of mental disorders. Was it ever the case? The average anxiety levels in the population today are at an unthinkable extreme. And the world today is more prosperous than it ever was. The per capita average global income is an extreme today. Mankind has more knowledge than it ever had. Do you see what is happening? What is common among all those extremes is that they are all external. They are all external. They are all external extremes. Be it the processing speed part, be it the consumption part, be it the knowledge part. They are all outside of the human being. In the external world, man is rushing to deeper and deeper extremes. Probably the reason is that the void in our center today is deeper than ever. And this internal hollow, its extreme hollowness is causing us to rush to extreme pleasures in the external world. Where is this internal hollowness coming from?
This internal hollowness is coming from a combination of mainly two things. One, a state of technology that can produce more and more for consumption, and a state of philosophy that is liberal enough to deny liberation. So there is the factory yielding more and more goods. And there is the philosophy telling you that consumption of these goods is the purpose of your life. But the purpose of your life is something else, and that purpose sits as a deep, unaddressed, extreme hollow in our chests. Technology, economy, and philosophy have combined to bring humanity to probably its lowest state in terms of consciousness in its history. And that's why you see all kinds of extremism everywhere in the world. Because of the misdoings of organized religion, the last 200 to 300 years have been of the decline of religion ever since the Enlightenment period in Europe. There was a lot in religion that obviously deserved to be rejected. But the core of religion, which is the spiritual urge to be liberated, had to be preserved as the most precious diamond mankind can ever have. Instead, we chose to throw the baby out with the bath water. So liberation has been junked along with religion, and consumption has been foisted upon us. Mandatory consumption. And that's the reason why you see people running to all these extremes, because it's scary. We need meaning, we need purpose to life. And when we do not find meaning and purpose in life, we do stupid things like religious extremism, like extremism in merrymaking. People want to go to the Mars to get some pleasure. An extreme step.
Acharya, just another thing, but which is slightly off from this, but then I feel that that has been something on my mind ever since you talked about liberalism in the current society, and all of us, these external extremities relating with the hollow that is in our chest, is a common observation about uh, about people or intellectuals claiming how a liberal society should be, but in fact not doing it. And I mean that's a statement, but then I want to know your opinion about say how recently we have seen a surge in the people who say that they are homosexuals and who say that they associate. See, saying that sexuality is fluid is one thing, but this has extended to the point where people say gender is fluid. People say, I mean, it's not far away when they would even claim that age is fluid. There have been cases where there have been some specific, say, perversions claiming some sort of there has been this specific case in UK where a specific group of people have claimed some sort of security under the LGBTQ plus movement. And I just want to know your opinion about this particular thing. Why the rise on this? Because this is something which is relatively internal, I feel. But then again, we as a society are moving to its extreme.
Is it not obvious, Devang? I mean, you want something in life when you don't get it at several places. You try it at this place as well. And if you start seeing some little success in playing with your sexuality, then you just squat there and you start insisting that this maybe is the thing that will take me all the distance. The little kid wants the real thing. It cannot get that. So it starts sucking its thumb or its big toe. It starts playing with its own body. But its own body is not what it wants. That which it really wants, we have assigned to dustbin in the name of progress, in the name of liberalism, in the name of science, atheism, in the name of several modern and postmodern ideologies. The real thing is there, and if you will be restrained from having the real thing, you will do a lot of strange things. That's what we find humanity doing today. Strange and self-destructive. We are imploding today than we ever were. Think of this extreme. The protocols and the Copenhagen thing and the Rio de Janeiro and the Paris thing. Think of what kind of extreme failures they have been. Think of why mankind is so suicidal today. And you will know what we are missing. We are missing the real thing we are born for.
In the long run, like right now in the present.
So look for the right place where real pleasure can be had. For that, you'll have to first of all test whether all these places that promise pleasure to you are of any avail. They promise, they attract, they also extract a lot, but do they really deliver? So, and maintain the faith that the real thing is not inaccessible. You are born to achieve the real thing and you can get it, but not if you remain attracted to, engaged with all the little and false stuff. Then the little things will keep you forever away from the real deal.
Yes, sir. So actually, my perspective of asking this question is that in the society, like a mentality has been induced that just crack this exam and just you will get the pleasures after that. You will live a life in pleasures after that. Uh, if anyone is aspiring to crack UPSC, then he is taught that just crack this exam. After that, you will have this kind of caste, this kind of workers around you, and you will get pleasure by that. So, sir, in the meanwhile, we actually do not focus on that. After that, we will also have to work hard. Means that we do not develop the mentality that what after that we have to do actually. So, sir, what you will suggest to develop a mentality after
Mostly
getting the
people
success?
who write the JEE thinking that after the JEE there would only be unmitigated pleasure, or who write the UPSC thinking that once you get your rank and are allotted a cadre, all you will have is power, pelf, privilege, and servants, and all the things that you talked of. Mostly these people anyway do not get to enter the IITs or the civil services.
Yes, sir.
With this kind of motivation, anyway, success is hard to come by.
Yes.
And even if you do get success, hoping for these things, very soon you discover that these things are nowhere on offer. You
Yes,
are
sir.
just being made a fool of by making to salivate after them.
Yes, sir.
Just clearing the JEE is no guarantee even of material success.
Yes, sir. Agreed.
The last time I checked, a fair number of students, in fact, a fair proportion of students, were remaining unplaced even from the IITs. The scenario might have changed now. I have not been keeping an eye since the last few years. But over a long period of time, this was the story. From every IIT, a fair number of students were not able to secure even the basic placements. And the bulk of the jobs that you get from the IITs are pretty ordinary, except for maybe 2% or 5% or 8% of the students, the job applicants. Others get fairly ordinary kind of jobs, translating into fairly ordinary pleasures. Same is the case with civil services as well. You can dream of the huge koti and such things only if you have had no peek, not even a sneak peek into the insides of.
Yes, sir.
So one way to just get rid of these imaginary pleasures is by checking their reality. Why not speak to your seniors? Why not speak to the alumni, let's say, who passed out 10 years back?
Yes.
Why not do a reality check? You have to first.
Actually, at that time, we had not any seniors around us, so that's why we were used to just think about what people used to tell us about the places that we are going to.
So difficult, son. You're living in the information age. Even social media is good enough to tell you the reality.
So actually, our coaching teachers also used to tell these kind of things that just enter the IIT.
They have their own self-interests to cater. But what we prevents you from doing a basic search on the web or approaching a few people and straight away talking to them? You want to get into something for the rest of your life without even concretely knowing what lies in store for you.
So finally, one thing that's this was just with the perspective of a student. So, let's take example of a person like who has a car that is enough to provide him the required safety, but he wants more and more cars for him, like to just show off or to get some pleasure out of it, because he wants he is used to addicted of getting good good brands of cars to just show off. So what are your views about that?
About what? Cars?
No, sir. No, sir. That what should be done so that that person should be taken out of that type of
There
mentality.
has to be a purpose in life, nothing else. I too have loved cars since my childhood.
Yes, sir. But to a certain extent, I agree that it is good.
There is something else that I have loved more than cars. That's all. We all have these bodily, social, mental, and likes and dislikes. That's the way our bodies are. That's the way the personality is. It will have certain leanings. It will have certain dislikes. So all these are there, but they fade in the light of something far more important. I
Yes, sir.
I have a mission to run. Now, I may have uh, personal preferences in this and that, but uh, there has to be a pecking order, a hierarchy, right? You know that something else is more important. So the first right over all resources, your time, your life, belongs to that really important thing. Cars can wait.
Yes, sir. So one more thing, sir, that in my JEE times, I used to study more and more, like 12 to 14 hours. But so now the situation is totally different, sir. Even 8 hours of study, in 8 hours of study, I feel that it is too much, and then after I used to get into my comfort zone, sir. But I don't want it, sir. But there is a condition, there is a situation that I am unable to change it, sir. Can you please suggest some ways on it?
See, I cannot tell you how to study for 10 hours or 12 hours, if that's what, because frankly, I didn't do that ever, to slogging for 10 hours or something. So I cannot tell you how to do that. But what I can tell you is that if you have the right reason for a thing, then you do not count hours you put into that thing. Have the right reason. Have the right reason, and then you'll stop counting hours. Whether it's towards your studies or something else. And as a young man, it is incumbent on you. It is necessary for you to have the right reasons in life, to have the right purpose in life. And it's something very, very personal. It's not a crowd thing. You cannot say nobody is doing such a thing, so why should I do it? You have your own life to live. Figure out something worth giving your time to, right? And then time will meet its right utilization. And if something is getting utilized rightly, why do you want to limit the utilization? Then any number of hours can go into it.
So, what are the changes that you want today's youth to bring about in the society for the betterment of it? Like, sir, our country is a developing country, and we have the most youths all over the world, but still our country is lagging so much behind, sir. So what are the changes that you would suggest the youths that they can bring about? Like, sir, what do you think that that is the main root cause of it, that our country is lagging behind? Instead,
I would want that they remember that they are young human beings. The youth should remember that they are young human beings, not young animals.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes, sir, that is fine. But what are the changes that you would suggest to bring about in the society, in our today's society? What are the things that you think that are affecting most to our society, that are affecting most negatively towards our society?
I'm requesting wannabe animals to remember that they are human beings. That's the change I want to see. And there is a lot that goes with being called a human being. It's a huge responsibility and a huge privilege.
Yes.
So you're not just young.
Yes, yes.
Species can be young. You can have a young monkey, you can have a young donkey. You're not just young. You're a young human being.
Yes,
see what that means.
So that means that we have the responsibilities towards the society. We will have to bear all.
Whose society? A society of monkeys?
No, sir, the society of human beings.
So first of all comes the human being. The society comes much later, and the society will be taken. You discover what it means.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Fine, I'll see you again. These talks will continue. So over the next months, I'm sure I'll see you again. My blessings. Do well in life.
Thank you, sir.
Shrutika, if you have a question, you can come on video. Go next. Yes, Shrutika, you can just ensure that you have audio recording on, then you can go ahead with your question.
Actually, I had a question, but that got cleared through what sir said. I had a follow-up to the same question he had, but now it's clear.
You can go ahead and ask your next question in the sequence also, Shrutika.
Yeah, namaskar, Acharya ji. So the question I had was that when you have with your friends, you tend to do some things that you know are just a waste of time. You still do them to get temporary enjoyment and miss out on a lot of things. This eventually leads to procrastination, and due to procrastination, there is a lot of pressure that is created on deadlines, especially for students who are in college. Like deadlines are something which trigger us the most. On the other hand, enjoying at times is also important. So how do we maintain a balance between enjoying and managing the deadlines, overall time management?
No, managing deadlines in context of what?
In context of everything, like in terms we are in college, we have assignments, there are exams. Exam is also a deadline to complete a particular syllabus. Even at workplaces we have deadlines to achieve a particular target, that way.
So you're asking how to adhere to the deadlines
Without procrastination.
while simultaneously enjoying what you're doing. You see, a deadline is required only when you are in a system, a corrective system, an educational system. The presence of a deadline simply means that you are still not mature enough to do things on your own in a timely way, right? So the first thing that you need is acknowledgement that you are still not there in terms of loving what you are doing. Otherwise, a deadline wouldn't have been needed in the first place. Or even if the deadline would have been there, would have been irrelevant. In spite of its presence, it would have had irrelevance. We are made to work in deadlines precisely because without deadlines, we won't work. We would simply procrastinate, as you said. So you have to accept the deadlines, and you have to accept it knowing that the deadline is useful to you. You have to humbly admit that the deadline is not just an external imposition, it is actually your internal requirement. You need the deadline. It's not somebody else's whim being foisted on you as a deadline. Right? So now I know that the deadline is indeed helpful. Now I also humbly admit that I'm not yet somebody who can work purely on her internal inspiration and do something or read something or learn something just on her own. Then instead of feeling resentful towards a deadline, you actually feel grateful. Thank God the deadline is there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have learned at all. Think of so many things you would have missed learning had deadlines not been there. Right? Is that not so? In fact, probably 90-95% of our knowledge comes riding to us on the back of deadlines. Does it not? So many of our achievements we are so proud of wouldn't have been possible in absence of deadlines. Translate that.
In my mind, I don't know. Even
if you
in
could do it normally, normally, as you said, normally, all on your own, should actually.
Sanskriti, please ensure that you have your audio recording on, and then you can ask your question.
Yes. So, Acharya ji, another question that I wanted to ask you is that it sometimes happen, like it has happened with me, that if I'm not able to convince myself to forgive them for that, like to go back to the same level. So at this point, I don't even
Go back to my first question. There must be something worthwhile you have to do in life, right? Why don't you focus on that? Which year are you in?
second year.
Second year. So Kharagpur campus. How many sports are you currently library? This is the time to delve into the probably enter some workplace and they will drive you towards productivity and you'll be working what 10 hours a day. And again, you will find you don't have enough time for self-development. After that, probably those usual things concerning marriage and kids and such things will come. And again, you will find yourself short of time. Don't allow this to, I'm sorry, did I say something that hurt? I didn't mean to. Hmm? I just want you to make the best use of your time. Huh? That's all.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm just confused that we should live with that free time. But when we get that free time, what if we are thinking about these things that what others are thinking about us and stuff?
No, but you should not have any free time. Hmm?
This doesn't this contradict with the statement that live with the gap you have for not taking up unnecessary?
Be to not even sleep unnecessarily. There is necessary sleep that your body wants, and then there is the needless sleep that your mind indulges in. Most people sleep at least for 1 or 2 hours needlessly. The body is probably satisfied only with 6 or 7 hours. But the fellow is sleeping for 8 hours, 10 hours. And this he calls as his free time.
Acharya I have question on how one should balance their life. From that, what I mean is like where to set limits in our life. People work to be successful, or some people's goal is to earn more and more money. They don't know how much, matlab, but still they're like, I want to earn money. And there are rich people who are unhappy in their life. So this makes it clear that it's not just about working 24/7 and earning a lot of money. So how to determine when to stop so that one does not also disbalances their personal life and being attached.
Balance is not the word. Clarity is the word. If you clearly know what you need to do, you can go to any extreme, and that would be good, auspicious. If you really are doing something that requires a lot of money, why not earn a lot of money? Equally, if you are earning money just to escape away from the ugly reality of life, then any money you earn will be insufficient. So it's not about the action, it's about the state and the motive of the actor. What do you need money for? What are you using money as? There are lots of important works in the world today that really are in need of money. If there somebody is running after money, wonderful. Equally, you have a lot of people running after money just because they have nothing else in their life. They want to substitute love with money because they don't have truth. So they want to compensate with money. It won't work.
Okay, I do understand. And if they have a right motto behind earning a lot of money, they'll be happy somehow. And what I meant by balance in life is how one should, like, one can balance the work and their personal life. From personal life, I mean, no matter how much you achieve or whatever you do, you are connected to your parents, your sibling. You give proper time to them. But personally, there are times when I don't even feel like the thought doesn't even hit my mind that okay, I should call my parents today. Like I have not talked to them in a lot of days.
You see, think of this, the human being is one entity, right? You are not many. So you are the same person who chooses your work. You're the same person who chooses the topic to talk to your parents on, huh? Now, if you're really sincere, shouldn't these to be just the same? You should have a great thing to work on, and that great thing should become your life. And if that thing is really great, don't you want to discuss that greatness even with your parents and family? What is this division between the personal and the professional? Why do you need that division? You are one person. Why do you want to be divided? Because division is suffering, mind you. Your parents will just not understand what you're doing. That's what division will give you. You will live as two persons, one with your work, one with your parents, and not merely two. If you look at people, they live as 48 people, divided in 48 pieces, and these 48 pieces cannot coexist. So there is continuous inner tension and bloodshed. Why live like that? So integrate. Don't look for balance. Don't look for personal life versus professional life, something. Your aim should be to harmonize and integrate. Obviously, that's not easy. Obviously, the moment I utter this, you see a lot of impracticality. But then, if you want to lead a truthful and real life, not a make-believe life, then this is what you'll have to do. You cannot have many centers in your life. Your work has to be your life. Your relationships should be true to your life. You cannot wear many faces. You cannot say I am one person to my parents, one person to my boss, one person to my friends, one person to my boyfriend. This kind of division will only tear you in pieces from within. My boyfriend does not understand my parents don't understand my work, my boss does not understand my passions. Do not allow yourself to get into this kind of situation.
Jesse, people say that sky is the limit, or work as hard as you can, or so that that makes a lot of people workaholic. So how, there'll be a phase when I'll be just working, and not even having that warmth or that feeling. But when I'm with my family or with my parents, I'm just free-minded, and so I clearly see the difference in both the things. But it's not like I don't love the work. I do love that, but that's a whole different phase.
That's because we do not know what the sky is a limit to. The sky is not the limit. To what? The sky is not the limit. To what? To stupidity, to money, to what? What is limitless? What is limitless? Limitless must be your dedication towards your liberation. Only that needs to be limitless. Only there you must say when the sky is not the limit. Otherwise, it's an empty catchphrase. The sky is not the limit. But to what? But to what? So, you see, I really do not understand when you say with parents one has feelings, with work one does not have feelings. How is that possible? How is that possible? And how will you bear this kind of work? mean, what is work really? One's work is one's liberation, right? Or is work a means to just earn money and somehow make a living? Or earn some respect and get a house somewhere and have a few vacations annually? Is this what work is for? What is work for at the end of your life? What do you want to say? What have you worked for? For the monthly paycheck? The paycheck comes one particular day of the month. How will you spend the other 29 days? So work is something very, very sacred. Work is not just a thing that you like to do. Work is not just something you're interested in. Work is not just something you get paid for. Work is not just something that is a continuation of the field you got educated in. Work is the most sacred expression of who you are and your self-knowledge. And if work is really sacred, if work is love, how can you have no feelings towards work? Think of it. I shudder to think of the lives of billions of people who actually have no feelings towards their work. Of people who hop jobs, of serial entrepreneurs who build companies and then move on by selling them off. In terms of monetary economics, they might be doing a good job. But as someone who knows the insides of man, it's scary seeing someone do that.
Okay, it's more of like we people have just differentiated a lot of things.
Move on by selling them off.
So, like just follow up to this. So, what exactly should be like? It's life should be a journey towards liberation, and working is like a medium to earn money and live or any.
Liberation is the work.
Acharya, with this, we have come to the end of all the student questions. So I will request Shrutika to please go ahead and do the closing address. Please.
Yes. So thank you very much, Acharya ji,